I'm Ian O'Neill.
I'm Caoilte Barra.
I'm Andy Stevenson, and you're listening to the Auld Triangle.
We're an Irish MMA podcast brought to you by SevereMMA.com.
From amateurs to pros, regional shows to Irish fighters abroad, we're all over Irish MMA.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, hit subscribe, and now let's start the episode.
Of the Auld Triangle podcast. A little bit later than usual, guys. We had some technical difficulties as we posted out on social media. Some sound issues. We live, we learn. We're the old episode 11 is in the kind of doldrums now. It may never be released. It may never see the light of day. And frustratingly enough for us, it was actually a really good podcast. But you know what? I get to spend another episode here with my two favorite gentlemen to talk MMA with, and that's Andy Stevenson and Caoilte Barra. How are you today, gents?
Flying it.
Good. Doing well. I'm here in the UFC Apex behind me, if everyone can see this world-renowned arena. Here for episode 11.5, take two.
That's it. Beautiful background there. They're after building onto the Apex since I last seen it by the looks of things. So you're over there doing a bit of construction, are you, Andy, or what's going on there?
Yeah, a few nixers, you know yourself.
Yeah. Well, we're here to talk Irish MMA, and we have Rhys McKee joining us ahead of his main event fight with Justin Burlinson at Cage Warriors 140 at the SSE Arena in Belfast. We're also going to be talking about Iúr Fighting Championships 4, Cage Legacy, that Cage Warriors Belfast card, a couple of more fights that happened over the last couple of weeks. We're going to cover it all in the space of this next hour or so. So we're going to get right into it, and we're going to go and talk about Iúr Fighting Championships 4. Took place a couple of weeks back. Andy, you were live at the event. A really good card overall, and the show overall really delivered.
Yeah, absolutely. I thoroughly enjoyed the show. It was a lot of amateur fights. There was only a single pro fight at the top of the card, but there was some really solid performances and some good talking points that we can dive into coming out of it. But the three champions there of the amateurs, and maybe not the most exciting pro fight to top the card, but a comeback victory in the third round. So some excitement there as Marcin Zambala's hand got raised and a boisterous Nuri crowd celebrating the victory with him.
Yeah, it wasn't the best main event really. Thinking back on it, Zambala came back really well after probably losing the early stages of the fight, but not one that will go down in the ages. But look, at a win is a win, and he'll be happy with that. He'll be able to build upon it. There's other standout items from the card really for me. Elvis Luco picked up a phenomenal win over Oisin Fox. That was Elvis Luco, a phenomenal fighter. We spoke highly of Oisin Fox in the last podcast, and that's a really good win for Elvis, isn't it, Caoilte?
Absolutely fantastic. Like, he's kind of, every time we see him, he's just like, he's getting better and better, and you're not quite sure where his ceiling is. But I'm really excited to see how far he goes. He's doing quite a lot of work at the moment with SPG Drogheda. He looks like he's leveling up every time we see him, and there's nothing but really good fights ahead for him, I think. There's one or two I would love to see, but I may not name names just yet.
Oh, don't be teasing us, Caoilte. Come on, give us one.
Yeah, come on.
Oh, go on then. So I would love to see a title fight between Elvis Luco and Gary Rooney for either the 125 or 135 belt. There we go.
Put all the belts on the line. That's what we say. That's what we say here. That's a good one. That's a good one. Speaking of Gary Rooney, picked up a really good win against Mikey Pereira as well. It would be his first of 2 fights in the space of 6 days. We'll talk about his upcoming fight with Jamie Abbot a little bit later in the podcast. But first of all, Andy, it was a real good performance from Gary against Pereira to pick up the title at Iúr.
Yeah, very hard fought win. It's hard to not talk about this without the context of what happened 6 days later, but I'll park that as you mentioned. But yeah, look, it was a good win. He lost that third round very, very cleanly. So he had to kind of come through some adversity there. He was quite dominant in the first 2 rounds, but then Mickey Pereira had his back, was looking for subs, and Gary, he admitted to himself when I was speaking to him after that like he very, very, very much lost that third round. But 2 rounds to 1, a clear 2 rounds to 1, and another win in the books for Gary Rooney, who's really making his mark on the amateur scene. And the most, I guess, intriguing thing to come out of that fight for me was more what he was saying in the post-fight interview that I did with him around wanting to break Alexander O'Sullivan's current record, because as we're all aware, Carl McConway fights every two days pretty much, so he might have that record sewn up by the end of the year. But Alexander O'Sullivan, I think, is sitting on 30 amateur fights at the moment. Gary wants to get to 31 before making the jump to pro, so it sounds like we'll see Gary at least for the current plans as an amateur for the foreseeable future, at least for the next year or two anyway.
Yeah, indeed. It's going to be very exciting to see his progress. And we'll talk a little bit more about Gary a little bit later on because he did compete again on the Cage Legacy card. One thing I wanted to talk about, there was a little bit of controversy around the Kerry-Ann Vernon and Sarah Elliott Sheridan stoppage. A little bit of upset, which is understandable at the time. Me looking back on the fight, I thought, Dec Larkin did a great job in stepping in when he did step in. Could the fight have continued? It probably could, but in my opinion, and maybe the way Dec looked at it, I think that Kerry-Ann Vernon was probably 2 rounds up at that stage and winning the third round. Sarah Elliott Sheridan has a good second round. She got Kerry-Ann Vernon down and had some success in the grappling. And that round was in the balance, but on the way out, she looked that she was losing the fight and she had taken some damage. Not extremely bad damage, but enough probably for Dec to kind of just step in and say, hey, you can fight another day. Caoilte, just get your quick thoughts on the stoppage. I can understand the upset from Sheridan's corner, and from her hindsight is a good thing. I'd be curious to see what the thoughts are right now, but overall it was a good stoppage for me.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I have no issue with stoppage whatsoever after watching it back. Who needs unnecessary damage this early in your career? If you're clearly down, it's just not a bad stoppage. She stepped in at a perfectly reasonable time. Once again, what's the point in taking in unnecessary damage? You're amateur, you've your whole career ahead of you. Just take it on the chin and move on to the next one.
Literally take it on the chin. Yeah, unfortunately for Sarah Elliott Sheridan, it was a good, she gave a good account of herself, even though, I don't want to say she was losing the fight. She stood in the pocket with Kerry-Ann Vernon, and she took some good shots. Kerry-Ann Vernon has been in there with other women who weren't able to take those shots. So and Sarah Elliott Sheridan's young in her career, and she will live. She'll be back. She'll get the chance to redeem herself on another occasion. I'm sure I won't bring you in there, Andy. I think you're the same opinion about the stoppage as probably both myself and Caoilte.
Yeah, I think cooler heads prevail. On the night you can understand, but at the end of the day, she was losing that fight. There was brief moments of success, but ultimately it was heading towards Kerry-Ann Vernon win, and I think it's probably long been forgotten now. And as Caoilte said, it's amateur, so live to fight another day. You know what I mean?
100%. Let me see. Dom Narcus picked up a phenomenal win on his MMA debut. Just utterly dominant display. He's one definitely to look out for. Conor McCarthy picked up a very, very good win as well. Revealed to you, Andy, after the fight that he's a type 1 diabetic too, which kind of makes You know,
mad, isn't it?
It makes everything so much more impressive for Conor, like having to battle those hurdles, you know, amongst a lot of other hurdles that you have to battle against in the fight game as well. So credit to him. You know, he came across very well in that interview with you. Very level-headed, very honest, picking up a good win as well. And I can see him having a very bright future.
One of the more respectful interviews that, that happened that night.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to get to next, because Conor, very respectful. Dennis Frimpong after his win over Solomon Simon. Let's talk about the fight first. Yeah, let's talk about the fight first with Dennis and Simon. A really close fight. We've seen some stand up. We've seen some grappling. You know, very evenly contested. The result was a decision win for Dennis, and I think it was a deserved win. That being said, what about you, Caoilte?
Yeah, look, it was a split decision in the end. I can see how people would score it for either side. Just entertaining. It was really entertaining fight. No problem with decision whatsoever. I imagine that I think in the final round, the Solomon Simon's corner, I think they might be a little bit annoyed with there was a bit of a fence grab that happened. Because I think there's a few fence grabs and so within the throughout the fight. Excuse me. But besides that, no, look, I think it was a good fight. Perfectly happy with the decision. I think it was grand.
Two top talents there, when Dennis Frimpong and Solomon Simon going at it. It's good to see that kind of level of competition competing against one another. Both of those guys have bright futures in the lightweight division, no matter where they end up. I know, Andy, you were talking to Dennis, and he's not going to be short of a couple of opponents down the line. Very vocal in his post-fight interview with you. Maybe just give us a kind of a quick summary.
Reserved. He wouldn't call anyone out. He's, you know, very best friends with SPG. No, look, just go watch the interview with Dennis Frimpong. He had a lot to say. He's not happy with SPG. He didn't quite divulge why, so maybe we can have a chat with him at some point and pick his brain a bit more as to why there's so much animosity. But he called out Andrew Barrett. He called out more so Mario Di Stefano, who is I think he said Andrew Barrett is less of a rat. Mario Di Stefano is more so in his crosshairs, so maybe that's a fight that we'll see in the near future. But yeah, he had a lot to say in that post-fight interview, but a good performance from him, a good win, and look, I know it's amateur, but these are the things that kind of, it makes you want to watch a bit more.
Definitely.
So I'll be interested to see if either of those fights do get made down the line.
Yeah, sure will. It'll be interesting to see that, and going out there performing well, getting wins gives you kind of a license to go and kind of say what you want. And I
was raging. It was the one interview where my camera fucked up. It was it's blurry. I was like, oh, come on, this is gold.
Yeah, you can see that interview and Andy's interviews with a lot of other people that were fighting on the card. I know Conor McCarthy and a few other people spoke to you after the fight as well, all over on SevereMMA.com on their YouTube channel. Definitely head out over there and check those out. That kind of rounds us up for Iúr. A lot of other stuff happened on the card. We've got to shoot right through this podcast. There's a lot to talk about. So we'll move on to Cage Legacy, which happened just 6 days later after Iúr. We had some familiar faces on the card. Obviously, Shayna Bannon was in the main event against Chito. She fought for the vacant flyweight championship after winning the strawweight championship in her last fight, in her debut for Cage Legacy. She went out there. Well, I guess before the fight, there was some weight issues for Chito. The fight went on. There was a percentage given over to Shayna of what they were taking in for money wise. The fight went on.
25k or something, wasn't it?
25k. Yeah, I think Kenna is on the 25 and 25 contracts. That's it.
Yeah.
He doesn't get the nickname Dollar Deck for. He doesn't
get. Brilliant. So I know you're listening.
The Crypto.com bonus.
Yeah. That's hilarious. But look, at the fight went on anyway. It didn't deter Shayna at all. She came out there very focused, got the job done by TKO via ground and pound at just 1 minute and 17 into round one. Closed the distance. beautiful inside leg trip to get Chito down, and then the writing was on the wall soon after that. She made easy work of Chito. She moves to 2-0, and the next challenge is going to be an exciting one again. You're slowly progressing through your professional career. I think the expectations were that she was probably going to run through Chito, and she came out and just did that, didn't she, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, it was flawless in my opinion. I was very, very impressed. Shayna showed that she was a level above Chito. And look, I think it was a really important fight. I thought that Peter Carroll did an article on, her injecting a life into the Irish scene, and that there's a big buzz, and those types of events are really important to have, hometown crowds. It felt like a big deal for Shayna, even though she's only, she's a 1-0 going into that. But the fact that, already fighting for a second belt, and I know, you go in, it's it's not like it's a division really. You fight one fight, win the belt at 115, win the belt at 125, but it feels big, and it creates that momentum, and it creates that energy and a buzz and an excitement around the Irish scene, where you have people talking about like, oh, where's she gonna go next? Like there's 3-4 promotions apparently, depending on who you talk to, you hear a different story as to where, what it's going to be in this promotion or that promotion. So it's an exciting time for Shayna Bannon, and she has a buzz about her now. And I had talked previously on the podcast saying, I want to see, the next 5-6 fights, you want to see X, Y, and Z, but I've completely changed my mind on that, because I think she's ready for the next step now, and I think that she can hit the ground running, and I don't think she needs 5-6 fights to make that jump. I think this time next year I'd be happy to see her at the, potentially in the UFC. Obviously we have to see how the next year goes, but it's very, very exciting times, and she's really shown that she's well rounded, and that she's not just a striker coming in here. She's capable in all areas.
Yeah, I think she showed that in her first professional fight, where it was similar enough result as well. And kind of really cemented that fact. Not just a striker, she kind of made a point of saying that after her first fight as well. And it's clear to me you can see the work that she has been doing with Paddy at Hulan Martial Arts, and with the rest of the team over there. The really solid core group of fighters in that gym. So I mean, look, at the competition is the competition. Shayna can't pick or choose it. She only has to go in there and perform, and she did just that, Caoilte, didn't she? She came in, put on a dominant performance, and you were in the hotel watching the fight live. You got to soak in all the atmosphere. It was, from my sense, looking at it on the TV, there was a real buzz, there was a real atmosphere in the hotel that night. And in your opinion, it kind of feels to me it's the start of something special here. Everyone is the hype is building each fight. The anticipation of what her next move is building each fight. But you know what? All of those opinions and all that excitement is built based off performances. She has to go in there and perform, and she's done that so well in her first 2 fights. Talk to me about the atmosphere in the hotel before, during, and after the fight.
So, yeah, I think just before I touch on that, I think you lads have summed it up really well. It's like, look, the sky's the limit for Sean at the moment. It's like there's a really bright future there, and I'm really excited for it. But to speak on the atmosphere in particular, before the fight, there's like I don't know, it felt special. I think that's the best way of putting it. Like, you felt like, oh, this is going to be big, same as like the debut. Debut is extraordinary, one of the best crowds I've seen ever live, even if it was just a few hundred people. You did feel a bit special, and the place was set up really well, so you had a nice walkout and everything. And then during, the place is hopping, and then after, oh my god, it was chaos. Absolute chaos.
You were at both of the fights, right? Was it a bigger crowd than the previous one in Tala?
No, I wouldn't say so anyway. Maybe like there's difference in venues, I guess seating arrangements, so it's hard to tell, but Tala felt like there was more people there. But the noise levels were still crazy in both places, I must admit. The difference between 2 events now in particular is the organization of the most recent event was miles ahead of the one in Tala. I think the big standout I said to Ian is like they had barriers. it made a massive difference. But look, yeah, there's a reason she's headlining these cards, and she deserves to be. And you feel like something special is in the making. I'm really excited to see like her journey progress, and what's next for her as well.
Yeah, it's a phenomenal journey so far, and there's plenty more chapters to be written for in the Sean Bannon story. And it's just that's the joy, and that's the importance of regional shows. That's what it's all about. That's where the anticipation builds. That's where your support builds, and the chances for you guys to go and see these shows are and to soak in those atmosphere. You can really get a full sense of it, what something means, and it really. There's something a brewing with Sean Bannon, and we've talked about it time and time again, and it's going to be exciting to be a part of it. And credit to Declan for putting on, and to Darren for putting on a great show, and same to Decky as well for Iúr. The importance of those regional shows and having fighters on them are absolutely pivotal. To talk a little bit more about the Cage Legacy card before we move on, there's one thing, we spoke about Gary Rooney earlier on. We're going to talk about him again because 6 days after going in there and beating Mickey Pereira, he went out there and took down another top talent in Jamie Abbott Bizzett by decision, and Caoilte, barn burner of a fight. I'd say the atmosphere for this one was electric as well.
Oh, you could hear, was it up the flats ringing around the room? It was mental. Yeah, it was one of those fights that is just, I don't know, it's something about it, because like in the last Cage Warriors card, you had Troy Gibson and Jordan O'Neill, had a big bit of hype around it, and then you had this one as well. Like, these cards seem to have really like must-watch fights almost, and this was another one. I think it was a really close fight at the same time in terms of like how competitive it was. You never know what was going to happen really. But there's one moment in that fight that I have to mention, and that is that the Kimura from Gary Rooney. Jesus Christ. I have a picture and you can see the grimace. And
insane. It's insane to watch.
Two savages,
I felt sick. I'm mad. Two mad jokes. And
was the atmosphere like, was it back and forth for that one more? So because I imagine for the Shauna fight it was very much pro Shauna.
So for that one now, you would have heard I'll admit now, you would have heard the Gary Rooney card a little bit more. The up the flats was everywhere. It was mental. But there was a corner then there's a fair few there for Jamie as well. So, but I think it was more so on the Gary side. It was a great fight. I loved it. I'd watch it again. Watch it every weekend if I could. Yeah, masterclass. I wouldn't be surprised they end up fighting again. But yeah, Jesus, lads, I don't know what else to say about it.
It was one that like a lot of people were very excited for, and it delivered exactly kind of how we anticipated, where, I wasn't necessarily expecting this big striking war. You were kind of interested to see, Jamie Abbott is a very strong wrestler. Gary Rooney's a brown belt. I think I saw someone say he's the youngest brown belt in Ireland. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe it is. But like, that's so impressive. And yeah, like what impresses me most, Gary Rooney's a savage. Like, to go in and fight Mickey Pereira, and it was a hard fought 3-round war where, yeah, sure, he had the better of the first 2 rounds, but that third round was a slog for him. And then 6 days later, he turns around and it's another war, and it's even more back and forth. And I think he was the rightful winner 2 rounds to 1. I think, or
there was 1 30-27. I think there may have been 2. I didn't agree with that. I would have had a 2-1. But
yeah, I had a 2-1. I had a 2-1 as well.
A lot of success in the third round, right?
Yeah, he got I think he actually used a Kimura as well to end up getting into full mount from there and started landing some strikes, if my memory serves me correct.
This was after round 2 where Jamie had the Kimura on, so he just didn't survive that. He survived it and he came back in round 3 and won that round, in my opinion. I mean, you're talking about Gary Rooney, he's not going in there and fighting scrubs. You're talking about Pereira and Jamie Abbott Bizzett, 2 top fucking talents as well. And I mean, that has to be said. And we built that fight up, and you know what, it lived up to expectations. We two really talented guys, and to have I'm really excited for both of their futures.
They're 2 lads you can really get behind too, aren't they?
Like, as well, very
down to earth, salt of the earth.
And credit to them as well for just they're getting in there and competing against each other, because it's amateur and stuff like that. But wins and losses may not be, we would say, are not as important in the amateur game. But you know what? Every time someone steps in there, and all the fighters, I'm sure each fight, whether it's amateur, whether it's pro, it has some significance to each of the fighters that are getting in there. But
it was a real
massively impressed.
A real just like one of those classic domestic clashes. And it's only not only an amateur fight; it's an amateur fight. So still, early on in their careers. But I think there was a moment, if I'm remembering correctly, where something was going on outside the cage, and I think Decky Larkin, or whoever, I think it was probably Decky Larkin that was reffing, kind of said, right, I'm not starting this fight until it calms down a bit. And they looked at each other, and we're just kind of like, yeah, like, let's fucking go, let's go. And they're like, Jamie Abbott busy trying to hype up the crowd more. Like those are the fights that are just that they're extra special.
They definitely are, and it was great to see, and credit to the two lads for putting on a show for us, for the fans, and the two of them have bright futures. But all the credit to Gary Rooney for doing what he did. Cannot be snuffed at, has to be commended. 2 big wins in 6 days, no matter what level you're fighting at, is massively impressive. So credit to him. Also was very, very impressed with Megan Hamill and her win over Sarah Carney. A grueling fight, a close fight. Megan Hamill, she asserted herself in the clinch and in the grappling department as well. And you know what? She went and chased that finish in round 3 and got the armbar over Sarah Carney, who, obviously will be disappointed to have lost. But, Megan Hamill came in there and performed really well, didn't she, Caoilte?
Yeah, it was fantastic. I really enjoyed it. It was one of those ones, said to you before, watch it again and again. The two of them were fantastic. It was really, like, the grappling between two of them was back and forth. It was thoroughly enjoyable. And I could have seen either of them win it at any stage. That's the type of fight it was. I must admit, the two of them have been, they've been competing internationally, so it's really nice to see them both getting on regional shows and get to compete in front of an Irish crowd. I think it's the first time they both got to compete in front of an Irish crowd, so it's nice that they got to do that, and they get to build up that show experience as well, because they have a lot of tournament experience, but now it's time that they get to build up this show experience, which I think it's good to have the balance between the two.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. That kind of rounds us up for Cage Legacy. If you haven't caught that card yet, I don't know if you can watch it back now and buy it, but it was a very entertaining card from top to tail. Lots of great fights on it. We just picked a couple of talking points that we wanted to discuss on that before we move on. And we will move on. Let's talk about Dee Begley next, who picked up a really good win at Combache Global against Chantel Coates, and really good win for Dee. The fight wasn't broadcast, but I got the chance to look at it. I know you guys got the chance to look at it too, and from what I seen, it was really good performance out of Dee against someone who's coming off the Ultimate Fighter house. So obviously looked at as good competition was her opponent Chantel Coates, and I think Dee will be very happy with that performance, very happy with the win. What are your thoughts? You got to see the fight, Caoilte. What did you think of it?
Yeah, very good. She, kickboxing from I didn't get to see it actually on the stream. I had to see it afterwards, which was a bit of a shame, not gonna lie. I would have been.
Yeah, that was a bit of a farce from Combache that they didn't let us look at that, to be honest.
Ian, I gave Ian a look there to be like, don't come to me, because I haven't seen it, and I don't even know how to watch it, to be honest.
It's in our...
talk to you lads.
Yeah.
But it was I saw Sean Denny going back and forth with Combate on this, and like they were kind of saying, "Oh, we never said this was going to be broadcast." But like that's bollocks, to be honest with you. Like that, this should have been shown. You're after kind of making a relatively big deal about, well, maybe not a big deal, but they're after signing.
They're trying to get into the Irish market.
Yeah, like
that's what
exactly.
they're doing.
There's a strategy there that they're snapping up Irish fighters. You see when John Kavanagh's tweeting about stuff, like he's got a big reach, like it's going to bring more eyes to a promotion. I thought this was bad form. I thought this was probably something to do with the fact that Chantel Coates was on tough. But that's not, Dee Begley shouldn't be punished in that regard. So like next time out, get her fight. Let the Irish fans watch.
Yeah, even if it's just on tape delay, even if it's release it on YouTube after. But like they do this with a lot. I noticed with Paz fights, with Franz Malambo's fights as well. If you're not watching live, you're not going to fucking see him back. I think it's something to do with
Irish fans supposed to. Sorry, I'll try not to cut
You're
across
good.
you as
You're
much
good.
this
Basically, what I
episode.
was saying is that unless you're watching live, unless you're watching live, you're not going to see them back. And I mean, that's kind of shooting yourself in the foot if you're trying to build a market, because number one, the fights are going to be on a little bit later. Obviously, they put the live streams at an earlier time. There's a lot of confusion in the air when they record the fights, when the fights are actually live. But there's a lot of fights for PA, for France, and now for D Begley that fans can't get back and look at. And in order to build it, if you want to build a market, you got to be able to watch the fights. So it's just, I'm sure these family, everyone would have wanted to see it. They put in the hard work, they put in all the camps, and you know what? It'd be nice to see everybody and to watch it live, and what their families and teammates and everything to watch the fight live and see all the hard work that they've put in. So hopefully that gets sorted down the line.
And like, to be honest, like from my perspective and an Irish perspective, I don't really care about Combatche growing their market. It's great, but like at the end of the day, Irish fans want to see Irish fighters compete. And how are fans supposed to? D Begley's not someone who's been fighting very frequently on the Irish scene, so that now there's an opportunity where it's like, okay, let's start getting invested in D Begley. Let's see what she can do. She goes out and she has a win, against a decent opponent on a big platform, but then you can't even see it. How are the Irish fans supposed to connect with her? How are they supposed to, want to follow her journey when they can't watch her fights? And it's not fair to D.
No, it definitely is not. And, we won't even go into details. I did get to see the fight, luckily enough. Mainly a stand-up affair. D landed the better shots on the feet in the exchanges. She got to fight down on occasion as well, and definitely deserved the win overall. And she got that, and hopefully she gets another chance. I spoke to her ahead of the fight. She was wanting to assert herself as a rising star in the promotion, and hopefully maybe compete in a tournament or something along those lines. But she got off to a great start by picking up that win, and hopefully the more success follows her down the line with Combatche. We'll keep on the winning trail here, and we'll talk about a more recent fight that happened that's fresh in our memories from recording this, and that's Myles Price versus Jeremy Stephens, which went down on Friday, Friday the 16th, I believe. I don't know when we're recording this. It's 17th, Friday the 17th of June. Myles had a lot of questions to answer after his first fight with Anthony Pettis, which just simply did not go his way. He said that himself, a couple of mental blocks, 3 years out of the cage. Well, he only had to wait 5 weeks to get in there with another former UFC veteran, and he did that in the lightweight division in PFL, and gave a great account of himself against Jeremy Stephens. Fought much more to the levels that he's capable of, and ended up dropping a split decision, but it was a super close fight. I'll just give a quick take. Round one, Jeremy Stephens probably took that, moved forward, probably landed the better shots. Round two, razor close. Could have went either way. Jeremy landed one big shot mid-round. Myles landed a beautiful combination and controlled up against the cage for the majority of the round. But we're looking at the shots, and that 4 or 5 punch combination that he landed on Jeremy Stephens in round two, in my opinion, would have been enough to take the round, in my view.
What are you talking about, man? The PFR said it was Stephens' round.
Yeah, stuff. Don't even get me started on that shit. And then round three was a clear Myles round. Like, even round one was not a clear Jeremy Stephens round, but you would lean towards Stephens for the work that he did. Round three, clear Myles Price round. Got him down, landed damage on the top, was well in control for the majority of the round. It all balanced onto round two. Could have went either way, and look, 2 out of the 3 judges sided with Jeremy Stephens, 1 did with Myles. Just fuck, man, it would have been the biggest win of his career. It's unlucky for him, but in defeat, he can still come out of the fight as somewhat a winner based off his performance, based off, speaking to Mick, who was in his corner this morning, the reaction he got from the crowd after the fight, the reaction he got from the PFL staff, very positive. So hopefully the result doesn't kind of manifest its way into him not getting another shot with the PFL. I think he definitely deserves it after a performance like that. I'll go to you first, Andy, just for your quick thoughts on that fight.
Yeah, I mean, I think that coming off the Pettis fight, right? He went in there, hadn't fought in a long time since that Peter Queally fight, and then to go in there, immediately shoot for a takedown, and look, just kind of playing directly into Pettis's hands, and very swiftly lost that fight. He needed to have a better performance, and to be honest, when I'm watching the first round at the start, he again, kind of goes for a takedown. Stevens sprawls and ends up on top, and I'm thinking, oh God, here we go again. But that was just not the case. Like, I thought Miles grew into the fight as it went on. I really thought he looked great. He looked very comfortable. He looked, I know he talked about the mental side that kind of let him down in the Pettis fight, and he just seemed to be very comfortable and relaxed in there. And I think that the more he kind of pressed the action forward, he had more success. So I thought he had success really in all areas of the fight. As you said, I thought it was a clear enough Stevens round. Like, it wasn't like he put a beat down or anything like that at all, but I thought it was a straightforward Stevens round 1. Round 2 really could have gone either way, and I did, after watching it, I was thinking, I don't know who won that. Very, very hard to call. And then round 3 was all Miles. So I think it was a fantastic performance. It arguably, even though it was a loss, had one judge's scorecard gone the other way, you could be looking at a career best performance. Fighting.
Yeah, I think you probably are looking. I think you probably are looking at me thinking back on previous fights. We're damn near close looking at a career best performance from Miles there. Like,
like the
we haven't seen. Like you said, he grew into the fight. His confidence grew. I thought he was a little bit tentative in the stand up at the very start. Shot for the takedown, didn't go his way, but after that, once he got back up to his feet, that gave him confidence. That opened up his striking a little bit more, and he felt probably the power of Stevens as well, and the ability for him to be able to take a Caoilte probably gave him more confidence, as we did see throughout the fight.
100%. And I didn't actually think that he would be willing to stand and trade with someone like Jeremy Stephens, because we know how good he is. And I didn't think Jeremy Stephens was going to be coming out here trying to shoot. I thought he was going to be looking for a knockout, and I imagine most people would. But I think Miles did enough through his striking, through how he looked from round 2 onwards. I thought he did enough, and I would have given him that fight. Regardless of the result, he was fantastic. As you both alluded to, potential career best performance. And I hope he gets in the PFL again. He deserves it, in my opinion, especially after that last showing. That was really good. It's impressive. Yeah, I'm buzzing for Miles to get back in, but disappointed they didn't get the result that I think he probably deserved.
Yeah, that's the cruel nature of the business, isn't it? And another night he would have got that. And
if that was in Dublin, he would have got it.
He would have. Yeah. That's all we'll say.
You said we'll continue on the winning trail, so we'll count that one as a win for Irish MMA anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. I think, and speaking and what I'm getting the vibe from Miles and from the team is that, that's what they're considering it as well. And they've every right to feel that way.
It shows that he can hang. I mean, come on, like Jeremy Stephens has been like, I know that
he's coming off a fight of the year performance, one of the fight of the years against Clay Collard, very exciting performance over and back. And, that's what I said to the guys this morning when I was talking to him. I was like, yeah, Jeremy Stephens might be at the end of his career, but he's still a killer, and he's still very dangerous, and he's still going to pick up more wins in the rest of his career. So, it's a real, I don't want to say a coming out performance from Miles, but it was a really good performance given what happened in the Pettis fight. And, that can add a little bit of pressure to it as well if you go in there. And I was delighted for him that he went in there and proved his worth and showed that he can hang with some of the best in the sport. And
it's a rebuilding year for the season. So, it's this season's about getting experience. Like, he's not going to, realistically isn't, I don't know if he may even already be eliminated now from the playoff spots. But but look, it shows that he can hang. And if you look, I know Stevens was coming on. He was a big losing streak, but like when you look at who he fought against, it was Jose Aldo, Zabit, Yair Rodriguez twice, Calvin Cater, Matthias Gamrot, and Clay Collard. Like it's not like he's fighting like bums or anything like that.
No, not at all. Great performance from Miles, and hopefully we get to see him back in a PFL. He has the chance. Obviously, he's out of the playoffs. They might match him up later on in the card. I'm sure that they're going to be having some cards over in London or in Europe as well. So it'd probably be advisable to have talent like Miles, and also obviously Brendan Loughnane, Stevie Ray, and all those, keeping on those cards for the European shows if they are going to go down that road. But yeah, that kind of rounds us up for Miles's fight. Unfortunately, Andreas Binder and Sinead Newlon over the past weekend picked up losses at Inferno FC over in Austria, I want to say.
Innsbruck, Austria.
Yeah.
Looked like a beautiful place.
Yeah, it did actually. And unfortunately, Sinead didn't have the result go her way, and as did Andreas. Kind of lost there. A little bit of a bump in the road for Andreas, but he's been tweeting out, he's been on Instagram, looking at the positives from that, looking to respond, and is looking to get back in there as soon as possible and kind of get back into the win column. But those are the joys of the fight game. Went over there, he took a shot, going over there to fight a strong opponent in Pastuche, and it didn't go his way, and that happens sometimes. So I'm glad to see that he's still keeping positive, and I'm looking forward to seeing him go back in there again to compete. Cage Warriors Belfast, we're going to move on. Before we actually talk about the card in great detail, Rhys McKee, who is headlining the card against Justin Burlinson for the 170-pound title. That headlines Cage Warriors 140 in the SSE Arena. Rhys kindly took the time to come and speak to myself and Caoilte ahead of that fight. And let's go to that interview and hear what Rhys had to say. Rhys, thanks for taking the time to speak to us today. Sunday a rest day for you? Are we taking a day of rest today?
Yeah, Sunday's a rest day, absolutely. After the weeks I've had, your Sundays are vital. So thanks for having me on the show. It's always great to have a chat with you guys.
Oh, great. No, we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us as well. Just a little bit, we're under 2 weeks out from the fight now. How are you feeling? Is there excitement? Is it focus? How are you feeling right now ahead of the fight?
Yeah, a bit of both, excitement and focus. It's been a long prep. I've had, the last 14 weeks have been gearing up towards the 25th, and, we're starting after this weekend, it'll kind of start to taper off now, and just starting to peak for fight night. But we're firing on all cylinders. Of course, I'm not going to sit here and say different, but it's the most cliche thing fighters can say, but it has genuinely been so good, and the preparations went so well. But I think because it is in Belfast, there's that added, it can't really go wrong because you're just so excited for the fight.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, I've been looking at your the video blog that you've been doing on your Instagram, and you said something quite interesting in one of the episodes. You spoke about that you held a resentment towards fighting at some stage that's kind of gone now. Like, it seems to me, looking at the videos now, that you are enjoying your training, you are enjoying the whole process and stuff like that. And I mean, with everything that has happened to you over the last couple of years, I guess, did that kind of maybe help in your resentment, or was there maybe an underlying resentment that
I think so when I left work, so to speak, and took on fighting full time, I think the answers that I thought it would be isn't what it was, if that makes sense. I thought training 2-3 times a day would just be a joy of your life, and all you care about is fighting, and that was true, but it was too much. I was drowning in fighting. It just, everything was fighting, and it got to the point where it was just too much. So then I started almost easing out into other projects, started coaching a bit as well, and then I started to fall in love with fighting again more. So it was kind of when I was able to not taking the foot off the gas, definitely isn't the right term, but have more avenues in my life. I became way happier again towards fighting. So I felt like fighting was taking everything away from me, rather than what it is doing is actually giving me everything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely does make sense. And that you opened up your own gym, and you have that up and going now. Does that kind of help in the process where you're giving back a little bit now as well?
Yeah, of course, and we're human beings, there's 24 hours in the day. You can only train, at the most 4 of them. So the thought, the days of a fighter just being a fighter only, where all you're allowed to think about is your training session and your next one, is them days are gone. We're martial artists, but we're human beings as well, and we have lives and hobbies to pursue and relationships to maintain, and there's so much going on. But don't get me wrong, a lot of people confuse this with the fight games maybe not as 100%, but it's probably, to be honest, it's probably on more than it's ever been now that I do have the facility of being able to train even more in that gym and stuff.
I mean, yeah, getting the training in that gym, also at Next Gen as well. How is the training at Next Gen? How, like, that, obviously your progression as a fighter has come through Next Gen, and your rise up, like you're a young veteran almost at this stage. I know only 26, but you've been around for a long time. I mean, how has training progressed? And I guess the question I would have is, how is the overall progression of mixed martial arts in Northern Ireland? You've been at the forefront of it as well, along with a couple of other guys like Paul Hughes and obviously a couple of others as well.
Yeah, like I've been kind of on the scene for the last 11 years, and since, maybe 3 or 4 years in, I've kind of had a really good position within that. So like, to see MMA in Northern Ireland like improve the way it has, it's special. The new breed's always coming through in the gym. Gyms like, where I also train at Fight Academy Ireland, like, the body's there, and the Next Gen is just sensational. Like, it's crazy. The position MMA's in is so good. You get coaches like Rodney, who's took me from day one to where I am now, and then you got Pat and Liam up at FAI. It's the country is in safe hands. In 3 or 4 years we're going to be in an even better position.
Yeah, indeed. And I was going to mention actually, your time with FAI as well. It's something that fascinates me because we've seen it, and they come up, loyalty towards gyms, not wanting to go and train at other gyms. But you were a guy who always balanced both, getting work in at Next Gen, getting work in at FAI. How do you think that like has impacted your career and kind of helped you progress as a fighter?
Yeah, well, like there comes a point, like, there comes a point where you're moving through weight classes, like in our gym in Ballymena and Rodney's, and there's not as many welterweights as I would need. There's a few middleweights. I don't think there's any active pro welterweights. Norman obviously fights. He's more of a lightweight, kind of middle of the ground, but I have to go there for the bodies. It also gets to a point where, like, you kind of work the same puzzles out all the time, so you need to find new puzzles, and for me that was finding that in FAI or Fight Academy Ireland. So plenty of puzzles, plenty of problems, plenty of big guys, and it's just fantastic. But it's I have two homes. It's Next Gen's like the home, and then FAI's like the fight camp home, so both special places for fights.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, your last fight against Alexei Mantakivi was up there with some of your best performances that you've had in your career, in my opinion. Really, like, you must have been, number one, very happy with your performance. But I'm curious to, I've heard you saying to yourself that you were super happy with the performance. How do you build upon that? Do you just stay doing the same thing and hope you bring it into the next fight, or are you in a position where you're still looking to improve and still looking to add wrinkles?
Oh, for sure. Like, the Mantakivi fight was the first time I've kind of like showed experience in a fight, showed a mature attitude. That was the performance I was meant to have against Alex Morano when we fought. As for topping it, absolutely, like, the higher level of fighter I can beat and make it look as easy and as good as it did will always trump the last one, if that makes sense. So if I can do the exact same to Burlinson and what I done to Mantakivi, that alone is so much more impressive. And that's no disrespect to Mantakivi, but Burlinson is just a higher level opponent. So there is no trumping this. It'll just be after Burlinson, it'll be right, well, can he do it to this guy? And then can he do it to this guy? And so for me, the evolution and the improvement never stops, but I'm just looking for cleaner performances every single time and more dominant. That's it, simple. Yeah. And it's, the evolution is endless.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, you mentioned your fight and your spell in the UFC, obviously against Hamza Chimaev first, and then Alex Morono after. I mean, oh man, we've talked about it time and time again. It was like two real tough opponents for you to go in and face. And I mean, yeah, you lost against high level competition, and that happens sometimes. What was the biggest takeaway from you from that UFC experience? What did you learn from those two fights?
Like, that sounds so weird. It's not that I didn't take much from the fights, but from the whole experience, like, and this is counterintuitive because I'm not there no more, but like, it just proves to me that I belong there. Like, I didn't find any of it strange. I didn't find any of it foreign. I met a lot of people and didn't find it weird to meet them. I didn't find it weird to see Dana. I just know that's where I'm meant to be. If anything, I found it weirder coming back to Cage Warriors. It's almost like, I almost feel like I've got imposter syndrome in the wrong place now. But like, I mean, I love Cage Warriors and it's fantastic, and it excites me a lot. But it just made me realize that I know I'm destined for the UFC. You know, that's why these fights are happening again. That's why it's for the title. It's why I plan to go out and do what I do, because I know my home's in the UFC, and that's where I'm going to go. So it taught me a lot, but mainly that I do belong there, even though the performances didn't match.
Yeah, I mean, look at the performance against Hamzat. You took that at short notice, and you said that you weren't at the height of your preparation, so you weren't really training at all ahead of the Hamzat fight, really, weren't you?
Yeah, I wasn't training at all. You know, I glammed up a wee bit at the time, because at the end of the day we're talking about fighting. I can't sit in an interview before the fight and say you know, I say the truth sometimes. So no, I wasn't really training at all. I was sparring, which was about it. But you know, for the level of fight that was, you know, I would have loved the full camp.
Yeah, I mean, okay, you had that camp against Morono as well, and things didn't go your way. I mean, in your opinion, what went wrong there? For me, looking from the outside in, it didn't look like Rhys McKee was in there. I think you could have performed better on the night, if you don't mind me saying that.
Oh, totally, you're totally right. You're totally correct. And you know, I had this opinion. I said it to the coaches after, like when I did get cut, I didn't belong to be or shouldn't be in the UFC. So, you know, yeah, it wasn't my best performance it was probably my worst performance of my career on the highest stage.
Yeah, and what if there was anything to you pinpoint? Was it the occasion? Was it just you didn't feel right going into that fight, or?
No, like I felt right. I think I tell you exactly, actually it just dawned on me. Like I remember thinking Morono would come out for a gunfight, and my plan was to sit back, relax, you know, bring him on to me, and then he done it to me. And I think I had this thing of like, well, if he's not going to do it, then I have to do it. So I'm going to bring the gunfight. And as you've seen yourself, I tried to hit him with everything I could and as many times as I could. And, you know, really what I should have done was I needed to take a step back and be like, listen, calm down, you know, relax, stick to the game plan and execute. Because, like, no disrespect to Morono, but I beat him, you know, 9 times out of 10, I beat him.
Yeah, indeed.
Just to hop in there now real quick. Rhys, you mentioned there that you would have had like imposter syndrome when you're coming back into Cage Warriors. After being cut from the UFC, what was your relationship like with them, and how did that conversation go down?
Yeah, well, obviously I managed, or with the UFC or Cage Warriors?
With the UFC.
Oh, with the UFC, it was kind of like Graham worded it as being cut in the best case scenario, so or being cut like in the best terms. So basically, I was cut on a development basis. So it's not like go have a nice career and, you know, do whatever you want to do. It's kind of like, you know, go get a few more wins and we'll see you soon. And you know, and I know then conversations do go the other way, where it's like, we have nothing for you, have a nice career, all the best. So the fact that mine wasn't, I think the basis of their cutting was they couldn't have me in there and lose, say, another fight. You know, even though I don't think it would have happened, but say I did, you know, if you lose 3 in a row in the UFC, it's very hard for them to welcome you back. Where when you lose 2 and it's a bit of an early cutting, you know, the time I go back, people will say, "Oh, it's nice to see him back." They'll not be like, "Sure, he lost his first 3," if that makes sense.
Yeah, completely. And like, is that almost reassuring for you, knowing that they had more of a positive way of cutting you and explained it in more of a developmental kind of side of things?
Yeah, like I'm very headstrong anyway. I don't really take much to heart like that anyway. So I think I would always try and find the silver lining if I could. But I mean, yeah, it's nice to hear, you know, and I also respect what they done. Like, you know, I'd much rather them cut me now rather than go and lose another fight and there's no path back, because we might not even be having this conversation if there's no path back to the UFC. It's the be all and end all. So the fact that they kind of, you know, helped me out in my situation and said, go get the wins, which I'm doing, and then we'll see you back. You know, it's kind of the best of a bad situation. And, you know, I'm going to keep my end of the deal up, and I already have kept 1, so now I just need to put another win, and then we'll see what happens.
Now, obviously, there's upcoming fights for its title implications, and you're obviously looking to get back to the UFC as soon as possible. Do you think this win would be enough for you, or do you think it would take one more, perhaps a defense or going somewhere else for it to happen?
Like I think, you know, with a nice finish over Justin, like a solid performance wrapped up with a nice finish, I can't see how the UFC wouldn't want me. Well, I would imagine they do. But if it's one more, then it's one more. That's fine too. You know, I'm enjoying this process of becoming more evolved. I'm enjoying the process of, you know, fighting for the belt. Like, it's all nice. when I thought I was in a rush early in my career, it turns out that I'm not actually in that much of a rush. So if they come after this fight, I'll go back. If it's one more, then it'll be one more, and I just take out another top contender, and then it'll all be done anyway. So you can't deny someone after 3 wins, I don't believe.
That's completely fair. And obviously this fight you're headlining again, and from looking at your record and just throughout your career, you've always, for your pro career anyway, you've mainly fought in arenas with thousands of people. Does it get like you never had to like make the jump of a few hundred in a hall to an arena? You've always been in arenas. What's that been like? And after a while, does it get to a point where you're comfortable in crowds of thousands of people?
Yeah, like you're so right. I went from my first fight was in an arena, and it's all been arenas. And I think that's why you'll always hear people in my fights or the commentary saying I'm very comfortable and very relaxed, and it's just a normal fight night for me now. It's the same way some people have adapted till nightclub style venues or hotel style venues. I've adapted to arenas. I'm a arena fighter. The bigger the lights, the brighter they are, the louder the music, the more people in, the better I am. And I just believe I'm a showman, and the bigger the stage, the more I'll always relish. And Belfast will be huge.
Yeah, you mentioned sorry, Caoilte. You mentioned Belfast for the title. We talked about the disappointment of getting cut from the UFC, but it's somewhat offered this silver lining for you, an opportunity to fight in the SSE Arena for a world title. I've heard you speaking about in the past that, the title for you wasn't the most important thing in your career. In some ways, it can hold you back. But 2 weeks out from the chance of getting to do it and fighting for it in Belfast, does it mean a little bit more to you now?
Yeah, it does mean something, but I won a world title for Bama before, so that took the first world title out of the way. It's not that it doesn't mean much to me. It does mean a lot, but I just hold the prestige of fighting in Belfast and headlining it for a world title means more, if that makes sense. The whole event means more to me than the singular of the title. But listen, I am going to wake up on the Sunday the 26th like a Cheshire cat with that belt, lying at the end of my bed probably, and then ask me the question, how much does it mean to me? Because no one will take it off me then. It means tremendous amounts to me. It really does. But it's just the whole event, the magnitude of the event that means the most.
Yeah, seeing your picture on Instagram this week where you're just sitting in the empty arena and you're taking it all in. Was the SSE Arena a place where you went as a kid to watch some events, to watch some fights? Was it a dream of yours to kind of compete there at some stage?
Yeah, it's been a dream. Any kid from Northern Ireland will tell you that the SSE is our arena. It's our biggest arena we have. It's where you go watch. I remember watching a motocross event there. I remember watching concerts in there, ice hockey, any big event, and that's where it'll be. So, to be able to to be the man with the name on the poster, it's just unbelievable. So it's just class. Anytime I think about it, it's just it's just lethal. And it's how can you even complain about being sore, being tired, being hungry when that's what you're going into?
Yeah, indeed. It must be unreal. And I mean, yeah, Justin Burlinson is the guy that's going to be standing across from you looking to take all of that away. How do you see yourself matching up with Justin? What way do you see the fight going? What have your preparations been concentrated on heading into this fight?
Yeah, I've known of Justin for a long time. I've rated him high for a long time. His last performance against Stevenson was kind of the one where I sat down and watched the fight, which I very rarely do. I don't watch many fights, but I knew I'd be fighting the winner. Just subconsciously knew that. So then he called me out, and it's fantastic. For me, that makes my job a bit easier. I think Justin's very, very good everywhere. He's no holes in his game. But I just think he's very good everywhere. Where I think I'm excellent in areas. I think I'm better in every area. But I do think he does everything well, and he's an extremely dangerous opponent. So I need to be on my game. I need to be sharp. I need to stick to the game plan and inflict my plan before he inflicts his, because he's a solid opponent and someone who's great to have a win over.
Indeed. I mean, Rhys, do you thrive off the kind of pressure of the situation, if, for lack of a better term? I mean, we talked about fighting for a title in the SSE Arena. You're headlining it. You're the main attraction. You've got a lot on the line where it comes to opportunities where you could be looking towards signing towards the UFC again. I mean, do you use that and kind of compact that into your training and use it for motivation?
Like this is another cliche thing I'll say, but like I would find it so hard to get up for this fight if I knew it wasn't for anything, if it was in the bottom of the card, if it was against someone I knew I'd beat. The bigger the scenario, the more on stake for all the marbles, so to speak, is where I will really shine. And the more pressure, let's say, as that word, the better I'll perform. I'm a showman, and I'm a bit of a show off when it comes to fighting. Like, the more eyes I can have on that fight, the better. So, like, it's really just a thrive situation. It's not something that's, yes, I am using it to fuel everything, but like, listen, I know how big this event is. I know the magnitude. I know how many people are watching. Like, and I just love it. Like, I just really do thrive in it. And the fact that I just have that chance to go out there and be like, right, everybody sit down and watch this, because this is the time to see what's going to happen. And, like, it's just unbelievable. The pressure is a non-situation. It's just a thrive situation.
Nice. You said you're looking forward for people to watch. Anyone that will tune in, I know the fight will be on UFC Fight Pass on June 25th. If anyone tuning in, what do you expect for everyone to see? What way do you think the fight is going to go? What are you looking to do in there?
You know what? I'm really excited to just show, like, how well rounded I am. I'm a lot more athletic this time. It's been a while since it's been last October since I fought, so I'm a heavier version, a more athletic version of myself before, but I know that's going to help me in there. I'm an athlete now, and I'm looking forward just to inflict hurt on Justin in every area of that fight. I'm looking forward to stuffing whatever he does and countering it with my own plan before getting him out of there. So what people can expect is just a display where people are really going to sit down and go, flip, he's been working hard. He's definitely been doing something different. And people are going to start to see again, like I'm backing up what I'm saying. I told them I was going to go and develop, and then I am doing it, and I have the performance to match.
Indeed. I mean, yeah, indeed. I mean, I think, yeah, it has been clear. I thought you were excellent in your last performance, and like me myself, I know I'm excited to see you getting in there against some top competition, and I'm just happy for you that you're getting this opportunity as well, and I'm excited to see what the future holds for you as well. I mean, still a young man, Rhys, and you have a lot of bright future ahead of you. We're looking forward to seeing you competing in there and headlining the event in the SSE on June 25th on UFC Fight Pass against Justin Burlinson. I really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, Rhys. It's been a real pleasure. All the best to you. Go in and enjoy yourself in there, and hopefully we'll get to talk to you sometime down the line with the belt around your shoulder.
Yes, thank you so much, lads. I appreciate it a lot.
All the best, Rhys.
Cheers, lads.
All right. It was nice to hear from Rhys McKee there. Seems in a very good headspace and looking forward to his fight with Justin Burlinson. We're all looking for forward to that fight and to the rest of the card as well. Let's take a quick look at the card, gents. Andy, I'll go to you first, maybe just a couple of takeaways from the interview with Rhys. How do you see this fight going with Justin Burlinson?
Yeah, I mean, well, I suppose firstly on the takeaways from the interview, I was very jealous that I wasn't there. Obviously, first I was away in holidays in Portugal, but can't have it all. But look, it was a great interview with Rhys. I think he's in a really great mental space. Like the fact that he was talking about that he wasn't UFC level at the time, or that he didn't deserve to be there, is what he said. Following the losses to Chimaev and Moreno. But then to bounce back and have that in my opinion, a career best performance against Matakivi was just fantastic. So he really seems to be, he's matured. I think that this is a huge moment for Rhys, right? It's we talk about, like we were talking about Shayna Bannon earlier on, and needing these big moments, but like for Rhys, a guy who's from the area, to go and headline a show in the SSE Arena in Belfast for a title, this is huge. This is a huge moment in his career. He talked to you guys about when he was talking about going to dirt BMX, or not, was it BMX, motorbike events and stuff as a kid there, like that it was this iconic arena. Now he's headlining. It's a special moment. So I just think my biggest takeaway from listening to it is just, this is huge. This is a big moment in Rhys's career. And as far as the fight goes, I think I don't know if this is Irish bias, but I really do think Rhys will get the job done here. I rate Burlinson highly, but I also think he gets hit a lot. I thought he showed that in the last fight against Skiba, who was, a solid opponent. But he did get hit a lot. And, Rhys coming off the performance that he just had, where he was just ferocious, landing punches and bunches, beautiful placement of shots. I think he can go in here and hurt Burlinson. But if, two tough guys, both have had their shots at the UFC. Obviously, Burnson was on the Contender Series, but they're both trying to climb their way back up, and it's huge for both of them. So a really great main event for the Belfast card.
Yeah, it is really good. A tough fight for Rhys here, but I mean, I would kind of agree with you too, Andy, that I think both of these men's trajectories in their career so far, I think that Rhys is definitely in a better spot right now with the experience. UFC his UFC tenure didn't go to plan, but you know what I mean? It provided him an opportunity for reflection. It provided him an opportunity to switch things up. And like you said, we saw that in his last fight with Mantekivi. It was a beautiful performance, and he looked to build on that. His mentality in the interview shows he's looking happy. He seems to be very excited for this opportunity. He's not letting the occasion get to him. And
to throw a question back to you, Ian, he talked about like being more athletic. What do you reckon he means by that? Because he's always kind of like, people have always talked about like the touch of death, but he's never, he's always been a kind of a skinny, long range fighter. Do you reckon he can add something to his game by increased athleticism?
Well, you can add a lot to your game by increasing athleticism. I mean, Rhys McKee likes to stand, and he's not very much on his toes all that much. So I'd be wondering to see if he moves around a lot more, bringing more takedowns into his game, as certainly as well, because, we've seen a lot of his striking, and we know his striking is next to none. And it's hard sometimes when you do possess the power and when you can hurt people like Rhys can. You want to stay on the feet and you want to hurt them that way. But, there's much more wrinkles to his game. I think, and it'll be interesting to see if he wants to bring those in. He's confident enough, I think, to go 5 rounds with Justin. I think he's good enough to beat Justin inside of 5 rounds. So I think the kind of story of this fight, in my opinion, and it's no disrespect to Justin, I think it's whatever Rhys wants to do in this fight. He's going to set the tone. He's going to set the pace. And I think, it'll be up to him what he's feeling inside of there. And I think, honestly, I could see him getting a win on the feet. I could see him getting a win TKO or submission as well. I think he wins whatever way he wants. Justin Burlinson is tricky on the feet. I'm interested to see what the speed disparity is. I think, Justin is quick on his feet, has some quick boxing. But athleticism comes with, I think we saw a kind of more, from Rhys, a more of controlled approach, very good decision making against Mantekivi. So he's going to have to do that, and maybe bring some athleticism into it, because Justin would be a guy who's on his toes, who's moving around a lot. So, I mean, Rhys doesn't want to get caught in a trap of just following him around and just staying in front of him. He can be on his toes as well. He can be elusive as well. And he can bring that maybe athletic side into it. But I mean, like I said, when you have that power in your hands, it's hard to steer away from just wanting to land those shots. Like, I mean, he's hurting Mantekivi with a fucking jab in the last fight. I mean, he didn't even get to let go all that much. So
he did that to Hackenfoss too. Remember, he
as
knocked
well
him down with a jab.
Yeah, he knocked Hackenfoss down with a jab. I mean, he's got some ferocious fucking power. So, I mean, okay, if he wants to bring some athleticism into his game, but at the other end of the stick, if it's not necessarily broken, don't fix it either. So it'll be interesting to see what he brings in here, because I definitely think that he's going to have to match Burlinson's energy. He's going to have to match his athleticism in there to get his timing off and to get his shots off. Because if the two of them are fighting at a different pace, sometimes it can be a little bit difficult to get your shots off. But a very good fight. at the top of the card. Caoilte, is there anything else that you want to add on maybe the main event before, or maybe take a look at the rest of the card, or some fighters or fights that you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, like I don't really have much to add in the main event. I think we've covered everything pretty well for that. But if to look down the card a little bit, there's a few fights that stand out. I know we've actually lost a few fights in the card, so it's taken a bit of a hit. I think Troy Gibson, Jordan O'Neill, and Andy Young have all had to pull out with injuries. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I think it's those three have had to pull out with injuries.
Pretty unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah. So get well soon to those lads. I'm gutted to see those fights off the card. I was really looking forward to each and all of their fights. It's just a shame. So hopefully they get rebooked and we get another Cage Warriors Belfast. But to move on to a fight I'm looking forward to, there's two that I can't pick between, and that's the James Sheehan fight and then Ryan Shelley versus Matthew Elliott. Those two are the ones that stand out for me on the entire card. I'm not too sure about you guys, but I'm buzzing for those.
Yeah, I am too. Two phenomenal fights. I'm looking forward to seeing Caolan Loughran going in there against Festus Aurelio, two undefeated guys at 5-0. Pasquale versus Hardwick, fantastic co-main event as well. Doesn't really have any Irish kind of what's the word I'm looking for? An Irish feel to it. No Irish fighters in there, but still a good fight all the same. Andy, anything that stands out to you for the rest of the cards? Obviously, we can echo the sentiments that Caoilte said there. Very unfortunate that Andy Young and Jordan O'Neill and Troy had to pull out there. It'll be very disappointing for them.
Yeah, 100%. Like when you looked at this card previously, I mean, even with those fights off, it's packed with Irish. Like it's a real regional domestic card feel. Like at the top there's the Hardwick Pasquale fight and of course Rhys versus Burlinson, which is a top tier title fight, but the rest of it it's more of a regional feel to it, and I don't mean that in a bad way. It's just like this card to me is, when I think back to say like the Cage Warriors core card, Cage Warriors 110, there was a lot of buzz there because you had the likes of an Ian Gary, you had Rhys actually as well, and a number of other fighters, John Mitchell, and a few others who you were really getting excited about, and it's like, okay, where can we see them go from here? And I think that's what this card is. Like this card is, it feels like it's a showcase card for Irish fighters to see, right, where can these fighters go and to start following along their journey. So to bring it back to Ireland, to bring it to Belfast, where you have a Rhys McKee, where you have Caolan Loughran, who's from Tyrone, and a number of other fighters. You have James Sheehan, where he hasn't fought in Ireland in 4 years or something like this, which is crazy. So it's really important, where when I look at, say, the James Sheehan fight, Martin Caoilte, he's not blowing my socks off this matchup, especially when you have James coming off that the christening of Jimbo Slice, where the phenomenal knockout. You kind of wanted to see maybe a step up, but what this really is it could potentially be a showcase where you can get those fans in the building, getting that ravenous support behind them to say, okay, I was there for this fight, and let's follow on to the next one. That's what I think about this. Like when you say, if I look at this card compared to, say, a Bellator Dublin, there are better fights on Bellator Dublin. Like if you look at card for card, Bellator Dublin's better, but it's also very different because this one, you feel like you're following a journey. Whereas I still don't have that as much from those ones. I don't mean to make it a Cage Warriors versus Bellator thing, but they're just very different to me. And I think this is one where, it's you're starting to buy in. It's okay. These guys have just come in, like some of them, Adam Shelley, Ryan Shelley, they've only come into Cage Warriors recently. So now it's okay, where can they go from here? And let's see their steps along the way.
It's some of the brilliance of Cage Warriors and what they do in certain ways in getting these fighters at the start of their professional careers and building them up. And similar enough to what we were talking about with Shayna Bannon as well. They're doing it to a different scale as well with these fighters. It's this is where all the hype is created. This is where, and Ian Dean does a fucking fantastic job in matching up these guys and creating that excitement, because there's very little talk or very little kind of, excitement generated before these events where it comes to interviews, shit talking, this and that. But you know what? There's plenty of talking points after these events because Ian Dean matches these fighters up so well in exciting, competitive fights And that's what generates all the buzz, and that's what generates all the excitement. So it's great to see the Cage Warriors doing what they've been doing. I guess what they're up on their 20-year anniversary now, and they've produced a lot of talent through the promotion, and there'll be a lot more on the way too. Keeping with that whole team of Cage Warriors, there's been a little bit of drama, obviously inside the cage, a little bit of drama outside the cage. I'm going to read out a tweet from John Kavanagh that he sent over the last couple of weeks. Cage Warriors posted a clip of Conor McGregor after he became the Cage Warriors champion. It was a 10-year anniversary of him doing that. John Kavanagh commented on that tweet saying, "I'm confused. Last week, my fighter was told if he wanted to continue fighting for Cage Warriors, he would have to remove the SBG Ireland logo from his shorts. I guess SBG is banned from Cage Warriors. Now you're promoting an SBG fighter, i.e. the Conor McGregor tweet. Does it depend on number of followers?" This, Andy, you kind of spoke
Just
with
when
great
I thought
promise.
I was out, they pull me back in.
You spoke with great promise in maybe the last episode that, there might have been an olive branch extended by having an SBG fighter on the card, but it didn't really work out that way. It's kind of caused more issues than it has solved, really, hasn't it?
I think that that olive branch was used as a kindling wood for a fire. God, can we not all just get along? In a
world
are you
where
not the one who calls for Irish versus Irish domestic clashes?
Yeah.
that's just inside the cage, though.
Yeah,
Fair enough.
in a world where people box the heads off on each other for a living, Andy wants everyone to be friends.
Yeah, I don't do well with conflict, lads. Come on, this is stressing me out. Look, it's just sad, really. To be honest, it's not, at the end of the day, the sport should be about the fighters. I don't know if this. I don't know the ins and outs of this. I don't know who's right. I don't know if John Kavanagh's right. I don't know if Graham Boylan's right. There's probably an element of both. Who knows? But look, there's a massive rift between SBG and Cage Warriors. What John Kavanagh and I saw Dave Roach was saying as well on social media, where he was I'm forgetting the poor lad's name now. The Italian fighter from SBG, who was fighting on Cage Warriors. But if he was told to take the logo off his shorts, I mean, come on, like what are we doing here? And also, look, I think there's so many. When I look at the narrative at the moment coming from a number of fighters, and the criticism of Cage Warriors has always been, and has been more vocally been as of late, the fact that Graham Boylan is, has a management company also. Some other fight, I don't believe this. I don't subscribe to this way of thinking that there's favoritism as far as matchmaking. I don't agree with that whatsoever. Personally, I don't think Ian Dean gives any favoritism when it comes to matchmaking. But look, that's the criticism that's out there, and I just don't think it's that much different to what's going on when it comes to SBG fighters and Bellator. It obviously it is different, but I just think that there are more similarities when it comes to these things than there are differences. And at the end of the day, it's MMA, not to be just like these things happen in MMA, the old reliable line, but there's nothing stopping it. There's nothing regular from a regulation perspective stopping this happening. There's no Ali Act. There's no anything like that. So it shouldn't be happening. It's not, it's ethically not right to have a management company within a promotion or anything like that. But
I think it just all boils down to over one person not getting along with another person, which happens all the time. But I think what nobody wants to see here is what's happening, and that's the fighters are getting caught in the middle. And if it can, if a fighter wants to fight in a certain promotion, he should have the right and have fighting in that promotion, no matter who talks to who or no matter who doesn't. If these things are going to be brought up, and there's two sides to every story. I'm not here to pick a side, but I mean, if it means, look at the fighter we were talking about was Tanio Pallariccio, who fought on the Colchester card. It was the first, great win as well. you know, no one was talking about the win. Everyone is talking about the drama that was kind of inflicted after with the comments, with the digs, and you know, John Kavanagh has every right to speak out if he wants to, same as Graham Boylan does. But yeah, I mean, it's disappointing. But mainly what annoys me about it is that, you know, I don't want anybody to be in a position where they're being held back in their career, where they can't feel if a fighter wants to go and fight in Cage Warriors, no matter what gym they're in, they should be able to do that. And they should be able to do that without any drama. They should be able to do that and wear their club's logo on their shorts as well. And
100%.
From
That's
sides,
about there shouldn't be anything restricted.
Yeah.
There should be as few restrictions as possible put on fighters. Full stop.
100%.
This doesn't just apply to Cage Warriors SPG, just period. Make this about the fighters. This should be a fighter first sport. They're the ones putting their bodies on the line. So, and they're getting paid fuck all to do it also, until they get to a certain level. And even then, they still don't get paid as much as they should do. So we should be making it as easy as possible for them to succeed in this sport.
Big time.
Or at least
big
providing
time.
the
That's it.
opportunities.
I mean, I'm sure you echo those sentiments as well, Caoilte. And
here's what we do, right? John Kavanagh comes on the podcast. Graham Boylan comes on the podcast. Make them a nice cup of tea, right? We'll all calm down, and we'll just have the crack, and we'll iron out the differences. We'll find the common, the shared experiences, and we go from there.
That's it. Like we'll go and handle the situation like some good old fashioned American daytime problem-solving TV. Jeremy Kyle, Jeremy Springer, Maury Povich,
Jeremy
each
Kyle's
are
English.
yeah. What's that?
Isn't Jeremy Kyle English?
They're all English, but they all solve problems. They all solve kind of disputes and differences, and we'll get them on. We'll make them comfortable. But yeah, look, we might not be fully informed of what's going on either side either, but we can only talk about what we do know. We could be. But if anyone wants to come on and correct us, Graham, John, anyone, come on. You know where we're at. And ideally, we'd like for everyone to be getting along and everybody to be working with one another, because overall, it's going to benefit Irish MMA, and that's kind of the cusp of the situation. But we won't talk too much more about that. It'll be interesting. I don't think we're going to be seeing too many SPG fighters fighting on Cage Warriors anytime soon, given what has happened and what has been said. But time will tell if that will change down the line. Moving on to let's talk about Dean Barry, who didn't have the best run of luck again, who was supposed to fight Julio Cesar Chavez at Titan FC 77. Looked in good shape, looked in mentally ready to take on this challenge. Unfortunately, he had a difficult weight cut and was unable to get in and compete on the night. And I mean, Caoilte, if it wasn't for bad luck, Dean Barry would have no luck.
Literally. To be honest, I forgot about this until I saw it in the notes for the podcast. Dean Barry, I think the last 2 years, maybe 3 years for Dean Barry, I think I said it to you before, it's like a book. It's like a series of unfortunate events, and this is just another chapter in that. And look, it is what it is. He couldn't fight. He had the issues. Look, on to the next one. That's all I really care. I don't really have much more to say about it. He didn't get to fight. That's it. I just want to see him get back in there, and the sooner he is, the better. And I think he'd be the same.
That's it. Kidney issues kind of compromised him ahead of this fight. Said that, couldn't get the bat warm enough, needed to kind of go into a portable sauna, cut the weight that way. Weighed in fine, but just had lots of kidney injuries or kidney trouble after the weigh-in, so was unable to get in there. So just unfortunate for Dean, Andy, overall. And hopefully he's all right. He makes a full recovery and we get to see him back in there again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And yes, it's just unfortunate. I think coming off being cut from the UFC, what he probably needed to do was get it back in there quick, get a win, get another win, and then see where you are from there. He was having a quick turnaround. It obviously didn't play out the way he intended or any of us expected. So yeah, look, it's unfortunate. I mean, the talk was going to 155 again. He'd been posting saying that the cut had been going great. So obviously it was something happened at the last minute. I don't really know, but it sounded like his kidneys. He was posting photos of his kind of abdomen or his stomach being inflamed and stuff like this. So just an unfortunate situation, and it'll be interesting to see how soon he can get back in there, and hopefully that it doesn't linger by any means, and that that he is able to make these cuts correctly the next time.
Indeed. We move from Dean Barry to Ian Garry, and he has a fight that has been announced for July 2nd, not too far away now, against Gabe Green on July 2nd at UFC 278, I believe.
276, I believe.
276.
The Adesanya, Jared Cannonier.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway.
Yeah, so it's great to see Ian back in there again. Caoilte, another challenge for him and Gabe Green. But they're slow building Ian Garry. They're doing the right thing. This is a good fight for him to kind of on his progression in his career, isn't it?
It is. And one thing I'd just like to note on that is they are slow building him. But if you look at the placement of him on cards, so he's only been on pay-per-view cards this is going to be his third fight. He's only been on pay-per-views. So he started off in the prelims, and then he was still on the prelims. And he's going to be again. Jeez, excuse me. But the fact that he's on these cards with all these big names where there's a massive spotlight on it, that's massive for him. And it just shows that they are putting a bit of a push behind him. They're trying to give him as much spotlight as possible so that he picks up an international audience as well as getting the Irish audience back in as well. And yeah, it's fantastic. I'm delighted to see him back in there, and hopefully it's going to be a good performance. It's a really tough opponent. I think it's perfect for his development. I think it's a perfect rise through the UFC. I think they're taking good care, and yeah, I'm really excited to see him back in there.
Yeah, I think it's about time we start pumping the brakes on Ian Garry's career a little bit and trying to maybe, we're looking at two people, and I want to compare two people, not in terms of skill, but in terms of career trajectory right now. And still at that, they're a bit further apart in experience. But Paddy Pimblett, the way he's being built, and Ian Garry, the way he's being built, are similar in some ways, is that they're being given good tests, solid opponents, but also winnable fights as well. And this is what I see for Ian Garry in this fight. I think, Gabe Green came into the UFC, lost his debut against Daniel Rodriguez, who was a good fighter, picked up a good unanimous decision win over Philip Rowe, and then picked up a knockout against Lohan Lanesi in last April. So he's coming in off the back of a knockout. With Darian Weeks came in and kind of fought a defensive fight, which was kind of hard for Ian to kind of get his attack off there. With Gabe Green, Andy, I think I can tell you can expect Gabe Green to open up a little bit more on the feet. So, that will be a good kind of opportunity for Ian Garry to get off a lot more of his strikes. Okay, he got the decision against Darian Weeks, but it was a dominant performance and didn't look out of touch at all in that fight. And making those adjustments mid-fight, which he did, and just being comfortable with getting the 3 rounds in and not kind of forcing a knockout, showed a little bit of maturity in Ian Garry's game too. And I'm sure he seems to be in a super happy place right now, very, very mentally strong, obviously training hard at Sanford MMA. What can we expect to see from Ian Garry this time, in your opinion, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping that we see maybe just a little bit more. See, I don't even want to say a little bit more action, because I think with that last fight, it kind of highlighted that there's a balance that Ian Garry is having to juggle right now, where it's career progression and skill progression, but also on the other hand, you have him talking the talk and then needing to back that up. I think the last fight, when he's talking and saying, I'm the best talker in the UFC, I'm a future champion, it was a very impressive performance. As far as, it was very dominant. He didn't get a finish, but it was impressive in the sense that if you weren't talking so much, you'd say, oh, that's a really good win, very dominant, decision. But when you're talking so much, you kind of need to back it up with some sort of finish, or just a little bit more, a little something extra to vindicate, the narrative that you were pushing yourself. So that's what I want to see. And to be fair to Ian, in that last fight, Weeks didn't really give him much. I think Ian
No, it's very hard to go in there.
Striking approach, and he really didn't give him much. So
it's very hard to go in there against a fighter who chooses to fight as defensively as Darian Weeks did. But
and I haven't seen much of Gabe Green, to be honest. But from what you're saying, it sounds like he'll it takes two to tango, and he'll be there to join in the dance this time, and that should open up more opportunities for Ian to search for that finish.
Absolutely, it will. And, we don't have to wait too long either. It's just a couple of weeks away. This fight is kind of crept up on us really quick. Yeah. Obviously, the news broke the week before last, and it was confirmed by Ian Garry last week. So, a bit of Irish interest added to an already stacked card. Like you mentioned, Caoilte, his card placements are big on 3 pay-per-views. This is on International Fight Week on a super big card as well. So,
just
big occasion.
To jump in, one question for the two is, which I always do, I always jump in. For me, I don't know if this is just me, but like if Ian Garry goes in here and beats Gabe Green, I still won't have like a marker as to where he is just yet. Like if he goes in and puts him away, like will you guys be able to say, okay, like I have an idea of where Ian Garry is?
I think it's impossible, almost impossible to say without seeing the performance. Without seeing what new skills he's added to his game, without seeing how he deals with that type of opponent. Because we talk about the Darian Weeks fight, okay? What Ian had to figure out and what we looked at is he had to figure out a way, and he had an idea in his own head how that Darian Weeks fight would have went. And ideally for him, he would have liked to, get into striking exchanges and knock Darian Weeks out. Well, Darian Weeks chose to fight defensively in that fight. So, I mean, Ian Garry had to make those adjustments and try and find the openings in that fight. And, he will have learned a lot from that experience. And I'll be interested to see what he brings into this fight. The epitome of an elite level fighter is having that experience and having that fight cue to match your skills and having the ability to adjust your game plan, number one, or make minor changes in your game plan if it's not going the way you've foreseen it, that you wanted it to go. So for me I want to see what we have right now before we talk about what's going to happen next for Ian Garry, basically. What would your opinion be, Caoilte?
It's hard to gauge where he kind of lies in the division. Like, let's say he wins, depending on what way he wins. Actually, to be honest, regardless of how he wins, or if he wins, let's say, I wouldn't be going out there saying, "Oh, top 15 next." Not even close. I think if he gets a win, maybe 2, I don't know, just start pushing up in little bits more of experience.
Yeah,
that's
really
it.
He's still a young man. I think I agree with you 100%. We don't even need to be.
Yeah.
I don't think we even need to be looking at the top 15 just yet.
With McGregor, we always looked as in, for me anyway. I was a bit younger at the time, but I always looked thinking, Jesus.
Yeah, but he was going in there and he was knocking devastating out Brimage on his debut. Then went in there and fought a not young up and comer in Max Holloway and did really well on a bum knee. I think the difference between Conor and Ian is that Conor went in there and produced and created that hype. And when you're finishing guys, you kind of have no other choice but to move your way up. And plus the way Conor was talking and his career trajectory and his star power, I just think it was a perfect storm for Conor. Yeah. And I think that if Ian Garry gets into this mistake of wanting to emulate Conor McGregor, I think that would be a massive mistake, because I just think it was everything aligned perfectly for Conor. It was like a storm in a teacup. His star power matched with his skills and his development. Ian Garry is 9-0 right now. When Conor came into the UFC, he had more fights than Ian Garry did have now. So he kind of had been more tested. Like, Ian Garry, for me, is still in a phase of his career where he's answering a lot of questions about himself. And he's getting a lot of questions thrown his way. There's a lot of stuff going on in his life right now. So, I mean, he's transitioning as a fighter. He's transitioning as a person. For me, I like to base my opinion off of solid fact, and we just don't know how he's going to go in there and deal with somebody like Gabe Green, who will I would like to say will come in there and look to attack and will look to cause Ian Gary some problems. And, you know, if Ian Gary goes in and looks good and wins another decision, we'll be like, yeah, we can cool the jets a little bit. If he goes in there and knocks him out in round one, then we know that we need to kind of up the talent a little bit, but we have to do it tentatively, that we don't give him something big to bite off, or give him a challenge that. And I think he's doing that. And I think his management and I think his coaches have so far so good. I mean, we don't need to rush Ian Gary up the rankings or into solid competition. I think the talent is there. Just need to nurture the talent.
Yeah, I think it's more about maybe just some like a recognizable name, like not someone who's going to be extremely high level. But I know this is not the person because they're teammates, but like the likes of a Mickey Gall type fighter, like that's not going to be the fighter because they're teammates. But you know, that would be like a good next step to be like, okay, well, you know, there's your earmarker of what level you're on, or maybe like an Alex Morono, like Rhys McKee fought, like those type of guys where they're outside of, you know, well outside of the top 15, but still, you know, you can kind of benchmark where you are.
100%. Like you're building up Ian Gary right now in the UFC. Are building up Ian Gary with solid competition outside the top 15, and the trajectory that the UFC like to go in is that you're going to be given when they feel the time is right, you're going to be given a well-known name that they feel is a winnable fight for you. Someone like you said, Andy, Alex Morono, someone like a Cowboy Cerrone or someone like that. You know what I mean? Along those lines, an old veteran, maybe another up-and-comer that has been doing good. But I think, I'm excited to see him in there against Gabe Green. I'm excited to see what he does. And then I think, you know, we'll have the opportunity to come onto this podcast after seeing that.
This is probably a conversation for 4 weeks' time.
Yeah. So
imagine what we're going to have to say after the fight if we can spend this much time beforehand.
We'll just like re-record all of this conversation again and add it to the next one.
Yeah, copy and paste.
Cut and paste.
No, but it's good for us to kind of get what we're feeling right now. And, you know, everybody kind of looks at it or analyzes in a different way. For me, it's more like, take out each challenge as it comes, look for the slow build, and then judge off their last performance. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to wait and see what he produces against Gabe Green. And yeah, I'm excited to see that happen. Something else that I'm also excited to see is Nadine Abbott-Bissett making her Combache Global debut. She's signed with the promotion, multi-fight deal, and turned pro at the same time. Had a super successful year as an amateur, and looks to bring that success into the pro ranks. An uber talent and someone I'm excited to see make her professional debut. I think they're aiming for sometime later on in the year, Caoilte.
Yeah, don't think there's a fight official yet, but or confirmed, but it's in the works. So hopefully, maybe sometime after summer, we might see her in action in Combache. That'd be so. Yeah, look, it's a massive move. I think it's perfect time as well. As like, there's not much. It's very hard to get competition at atom weight. We've seen it with her having to move up to strawweight for her last two fights. The only place that she could get atom weight fights was at IMMAF competitions. So there's no point in fighting people who are going to be 10, 20 pounds heavier than you when the opportunity is there to go pro. And I think it's come at a perfect time. I think it's a great move by Combache, especially since they're trying to kind of maybe not slowly, work their way into the Irish market. But yeah, perfect signing. Very excited for Nadine. I think she'll do really well there. And one thing I would love to see is if she gets entered into one of those tournaments, because we've already seen her as an amateur thrive in those situations. Put her in a one-night one, similar with what happened with Palahan. I'd love to see it. I think that would be a really good move.
Yeah.
When does summer end? Is it September? Is that this first?
That's what Green Day said anyway. Or is it what's that their song? Wake me up when.
Go on, give us a verse.
No, I won't. I won't put anyone. I won't hurt anybody's ears. But yeah, I mean, yeah, it's going to be exciting to see Nadine. The move, when I seen the news, it surprised me, but then when I thought about it, it didn't surprise me all that much. Was that kind of your feeling, Andy?
Yeah, exactly that. I think Caoilte nailed it as well. There's no point in her sticking around at amateur. When you look at it, what she's doing, like her last performance was a phenomenal one against someone who probably outweighed her on fight night by 20 pounds maybe. Nadine is an atom weight, and dare I say whatever the weight class is below atom weight, because when you're weighing in with your tracksuits on and having a full breakfast and you're still coming in like so light as she does, you don't need to be fighting up that weight classes that high, and especially not when you're not getting paid. So this is great. I'm glad to see her snapped up by a promotion immediately, going, as she turns pro. But I tell you what, if Combate Global don't have a way for me to watch Nadine Abbott Bissett, I'll be showing up to Campbell McLaren's gaff.
We'll fucking riot if we cannot see Nadine Abbott Bissett's first fight at Combate Global. Campbell, if you're listening, or anyone who's listening that has any involved, Mike, make sure that we can watch Nadine Abbott Bissett, because we want to see it, and we want to make everybody else that can see it see Nadine in. She's all action. She's a phenomenal fighter. I cannot wait. She's one that I'm really high on, and I'm really excited to see her progression in the professional ranks. Fighting women her own weight is the way to go, and she made the absolute right decision in turning pro and signing with Combate. And, she's following along line of talent there now. Palahan, Dee Begley, like we spoke about, Franz Malambo, Nadine, Combate are getting up that Irish roster, and hopefully that leads to a live show perhaps, where not alone can we watch them on the TV, but you can actually go and support them live as well. It's important to give them the opportunity, so hopefully that happens down the line. But some big things ahead for Nadine,
and it's not just us that are excited by her. Like, there's a buzz around Nadine on the Irish scene. There's a lot of people that are excited, a lot of fighters, a lot of coaches. So it's in Combate's interest to allow us to watch Nadine, because her star will only grow.
And never mind all that pay-per-view on Facebook crack. Get a TV deal, put it on telly, get more people to watch it, put on, so I think that'd be better as well. It's like, it's easy to watch on Facebook, but it'd be nice to kind of have a bit of a spotlight with a TV deal.
When Sean Denny was going back and forth, he was saying, like, Combate were actually saying that, tell the Irish networks to give us a deal, but he was talking about Air Sport. Air Sport's dead. Air Sport is gone, so they need to be looking at something elsewhere. Look at a Virgin Media. Look at a fucking TG. Get into TG.
Stick it on stick it on YouTube, man. If you can't get anything, just give us a way to look at it. We're in 2022 now. Like, we shouldn't be in a fucking world where we can't watch a fight with the technology and the live streaming services are there. Yes, there's TV rights. Yes, there's deals you have to fucking kind of cater to with TV channels. But at the end of the day, it's the fans that get you your viewing figures and your hype and everything like that. So I know they're doing some great numbers in fucking wherever they are in North America, but we need to be watching. If you're going to sign up Irish talent, make sure the fans, make sure the media, and make sure everyone can watch them fight. So fingers crossed, we don't have to get the pitchforks out after.
Strike one, Combate.
This is the warning.
Don't get to strike two.
Brilliant. Caoilte, talk to me about Martin McNulty, who is fighting this weekend as we were recording.
Yeah, actually, I'll check to see if there's any update on that, just in case I speak too soon.
Yeah,
okay,
I'll go back.
There's no
update.
Yet.
No update.
I had it.
Just,
I had the
just
had
another
it up my
update.
phone.
Dom Narcus, who we spoke about earlier on, just won in 2 minutes by a TKO in his second MMA fight. So another.
Dom's not getting paid by the hour, it seems.
I love it. But yeah, look, I'll circle back to Martin McNulty there. So I imagine that a lot of people listening to this won't be aware of Martin. He is one of those finds that I've come across on Tapology randomly one day. The name stands out like a sore thumb, but he had the French flag next to it, and I was thinking, this lad has to have an Irish connection. And lo and behold, he does.
Martin McNulty.
He has an Irish accent too, though. The two lads have heard it. But yeah, dual nationality, French-Irish lad. He's fighting as we speak at an event called MMA Showtime, and he's fighting lad 3-1 Aaron Coskin at flyweight. So yeah, he's 3-0. If he wins tonight, he moves to 4-0, and that's massive. You could, with Cage Warriors having looked at France recently, you never know, he could get picked up. If they're aware of him, he could get picked up. I'd like to see him fight in Ireland if Cage Conflict could get him on, I'm not going to lie. But especially because he's a flyweight. Never know. But yeah, that's what's happened at the moment. Another one to keep an eye on.
Nice. We'll get an update on that for the next podcast. Also fighting next weekend on June 25th in Germany, Andy, is Lee Hammond against Karmatelio Suvayev.
Beautiful
I
pronunciation.
saved you the bother of trying to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, looking forward to seeing Lee back. I had to watch Sufiev's last fight there. Apparently he's a combat sambo background. He's from Tajikistan. I think he trains out of Germany. And look, he appears to be more of a grappler, which kind of plays directly into Lee's hands. We know Lee's prowess on the mat. He's striking goes, and yeah, I'm excited to see what's next. So it's another step. Lee is craftily managing his own career by the looks of things. He's popping in and out of social media. We don't hear from him for a month or two until he's got a fight book, and then he pops back up again. So I'm looking forward to seeing Lee. Maybe we can speak to him at some point on here, maybe after this one. And yeah, I'm excited to see what's next for Lee.
Indeed, am I. I think he's setting the tone and what way you should kind of handle your early career. One fight deals the way to go, and he's doing just that. All right, guys, we're just going to go into some quick Q&As here before we wrap it up. Irish MMA 101 asks us, what is our thoughts on Jordan Scully as an MMA fighter? I thought that Jordan performed excellently at Iúr, picking up a good win on that card. And, we talked about SBG Tullamore here in the podcast time and time again. And, they're doing some great things. And Jordan is a part of that stable of fighters. And there's many more that we're going to hear from down through the years. Andy Paul Brown asks, best performances or ones to watch from Iúr Championship. I said I'd go to you. You were up there. Is there any takeaways? Or we spoke about the card already. If you could just go through a couple of quick ones to watch, or people that you're excited about.
Yeah, I'll list off a few very quickly. So Jordan Scully, who you just mentioned there, I thought he put on a grappling masterclass. I think the work that he's doing with Kieran Davern is fantastic. He spoke to me after about how his next goal is to become IMMAF world champion. So very excited to see what's next for him. Still very young. We talked about the stoppage in the Kerry-Ann Vernon Sarah Elliott Sheridan fight, but Kerry-Ann Vernon looked fantastic on the feet in that fight, and she continues to look a very, very solid striker. So was impressed there. Dom Narcus, who we mentioned before, it's only his first MMA fight, but when you have an MMA debut, you're 18 years old and you go in like that, very impressive. Conor McCarthy's, I thought he showed a new wrinkle to his game. We know he's got savage hands. He's a good boxer, but the work he's doing with Sergey Pukulski in the wrestling department, it was a much more well-rounded performance, and he used his grappling to perfection there in that fight. And yeah, I've talked about Gary Rooney already. Elvis Luco, we've talked about as well. He's been blitzing through everyone. Elvis Luco is the dark horse, I think, at the moment in Irish MMA. Caught me by surprise again here against Oisin Fox, who we were all high on. So there were plenty of standout performances, but I don't really know if I could pick just one. But look, there was lots.
100%, well said. We'll move on to you, Caoilte. MMA Akas asks, 3 Irish pros you're most interested in tracking this year.
I'm pretty sure the last time we did this, we did one each. We all went around, we had one each. So we'll do that again. So I'll kick it off again. Nadine Abbot Bissett.
Andy.
Shayna Bannon.
And I will go with Pa Lehan.
Nice.
Lee Hammond. Rounds, didn't we?
Lee Hammond. There's a bunch, like, we're very lucky right now, but those are the ones that we're keeping an eye on this year, but there's plenty more.
Were we doing 3 rounds?
We did
3 rounds? Yeah, we did 3 rounds.
We did 3 rounds. Okay, good.
So Lee Hammond's your second.
Yeah,
okay. I said Lee Hammond. I'll go again. I'll say it was someone who's been a little bit forgotten about. That I would say Paul Hughes. I'm interested to see what the rest of the year looks out for Paul Hughes. Fortunate with injuries. I definitely think he has 1 or 2 big fights ahead of him in 2022. Hopefully, he must be uber disappointed not to be able to compete on the Belfast card, but he'll bounce back, and I expect a couple of big fights for him later on this year.
Great choice. I'll go Richie Smullen. He's won 2 titles.
Nice.
Haven't heard too much about what's next, but yeah, I'm interested to see what the next step is.
Sure. Who will I go for? Ger Harris. There we go.
Solid
Great
choice.
shout.
Solid choice.
You up the flyweights.
My last one for this year, I think Will Fleury has a big 2022 in him as well, of course, after picking up the middleweight title at UAE Warriors. Will he defend that title? Will that title open up other avenues for him? That's it. Will is someone I'm looking out for. Like, I mean, Paul and Will all for me have some great opportunities ahead of them in 2022. Lots of other Irish pros to look out for. Andy, what's your last one?
I'm going to go with the man Jimbo Slice. I'm excited to see what happens next weekend, and then should he come out victorious, how does he spring on from there?
Indeed. Great shouts, lads. Let's head on down. Ross asks, with the recent addition of Shayna Bannon and Nadine Abbott-Bissett to the pro ranks and a few upcoming Cage Warriors debuts and pro debuts, what do you feel are the best avenues for female versus male fighters turning pro in Ireland? I think the avenues are a little bit different, because I think the talent pool when it comes to women's MMA in Ireland is a little bit, it's not as in depth as what like male MMA. It's kind of, I don't know how male and female. The men's
there's more fighters.
There's more fighters in
way
men's
more
categories than there is in women. So that's why we're seeing, Shayna in certain ways has been lucky that she's been able to fight regionally and get her first couple of wins on Irish soil. She's not going to have that luxury for too much longer if she needs to up her competition. And, we're probably going to see her fighting in North America sometime over the next year. Nadine Abbott-Bissett has had the opportunity to go over, or she's going to go over to Combatche. That'll open up more avenues for her. Let's talk about some women that are already in Ireland and have done it. Danny McCormick. You're talking about Danny McCormick, who was in a Bellator division that didn't exist for her weight category. It's very difficult for her to find fights. She's going over to fight in Malta. We'll talk about that in the next podcast. But I think the avenues for male fighters and female fighters are a little bit different, and it's based off the lack of talent for women's MMA in Ireland right now. There's a shit ton of talented women up and coming, and it's going to get better, but it's a little bit more behind. And you could probably say that probably for the majority of MMA, it's a little bit behind. But at the highest level in the UFC, you're seeing top level women fight, but it has to be said the talent pool isn't there as much as you'd see in the male ranks. But that's going to get better with time. What's the best avenue? The best avenue is getting in there and fighting in your weight class, and fighting with a promotion that's willing to give you a platform, pay you reasonably well, and set you up for success. Anybody else have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, actually, I have one or two, unless anyone wants to jump in. No, grand. So like, to kind of look directly at the avenues, because I actually really like the question. Maybe not like let's look at talent, put talent aside or quantity aside, all that crack. Promotions in Europe don't exactly have extensive women's divisions, so therefore for women coming through, I would be like, Shayna got people flown in. That's how difficult it is, and it's fantastic. We got to see that, absolutely fantastic. But outside of that, you're looking at Cage Warriors don't have a division. Bellator, they only have 2 divisions, I think it is, flyweight and featherweight. Please correct me if I'm wrong there if I'm missing one.
No,
but then
right.
Cage Warriors have none. I can't think of any other European ones. So the avenues you're looking at, you're thinking, okay, you're doing one fight deals in various promotions around the world who don't have divisions, or you go somewhere that does. And the ones that stand out for women in particular, you're looking at Combatche is the most recent one, the UFC, but that's obviously one down the line for turning pro, maybe Invicta, the place in Canada. So it's a bit more limited in terms of options. Maybe one championship might be another one. For men, then you have a lot more options. You can fight regionally for a little while if you want and build up or you can go to UK. There's so many more options, which is kind of the difference. And then you get to the politics of it, of Cage Warriors, Bellator, you know yourselves, lads. And that kind of makes them avenues a little bit different. So I guess that's where the difference comes there, in my opinion. But yeah, I think I've probably spoken too much about it now.
No, very well said.
No, I think
Said. Any final thoughts from yourself, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, look, the ultimate goal, I think for women is either to get to Bellator or to get to the UFC, more so to get to the UFC. Like that's where the best fighters in the world are, unless you're a featherweight, where the division doesn't really exist. But we're talking about, say, Irish pros coming up now. It's the likes of a Shayna Bannon and a Dean Abbot. I think getting to somewhere like an Invicta is the ideal scenario. You'll have opponents. It's a tried and true method of getting, name recognition, building a reputation, and also getting those tough challenges and getting to the UFC. But if you can get in there, if you're coming from Europe and you can get a few fights here and there and then just get directly in, there's probably not that much of a jump between Invicta and the level in the UFC. There is to an extent, but not really. I mean, you see people kind of dip in and out of the two of them, and you don't have to have a massive record when you're a female fighter to get into the UFC, just because it's much harder to get fights. So the talent pool is smaller. They're going to pick you up sooner. For the guys, there's way more options because there's always fights everywhere. And as far as what's the right route, the correct route has kind of been thrown out the window in the last few years. It depends what you're looking for. If it's to get to the UFC, well, then you could go Cage Warriors, you could go the European route. There's a lot of variables. It depends what management you have.
I think the route that we're seeing by some fighters and what they're doing right now, to me, looks like the right one to do, and that's one fight deals. We said that Lee was doing it. We've seen other fighters that are doing it as well. It's not tying yourself into long-term contracts and putting yourself out in the free agency market. To me, that seems like the best until, especially for the first maybe 9-10 fights of your career. And then, when you do build up that your level of skills, you build up your record, you maybe build up your hype and your fan base, then you can start looking to tie yourself into kind of like a more long-term deal. But for me, you don't want to be a fighter that's signing with Bellator and only having an opportunity at the start of your career to only fight twice per year whenever they bring in an event to Ireland. I think I wish Bellator didn't do that. Unless you're
not in a rush, though.
Unless you're not.
If you're not in a rush and you want to make a few quid, then at the start of your career, it could be something that will work.
Yeah, but I think early on you need to be getting fights in quick succession. I think MMA is a very forgetful sport. If you're not in there and you're not competing, you get forgotten about. And that's the way, especially early on in your career. When you get your name out there, when you're established as a professional fighter, then this is just my opinion. I mean, you're definitely not wrong on what you're saying, Andy. I mean, this is just my perspective,
thing, right? Isn't it? It's like there's so much to it. It'll be interesting to see with the likes of guys we mentioned, like a Will Fleury, Lee Hammond, Richie Smullen, who are kind of forging their own path. Obviously, Andreas Binder just suffered a setback there. But can these guys, like a Will Fleury and a Richie, where they've won titles now in other organizations, are they going to make that jump? Will we see them signed and snapped up by the UFC, or are there any barriers to that? I don't know what the answer is yet.
It could be a conversation for another day. We could go on about this, but we've got to wrap it up, unfortunately, for episode 11 of the Auld Triangle. Thanks to everybody for listening to the episode today. Thank you to Rhys McKee for coming and joining us and speaking to us ahead of his fight at Cage Warriors 140. We'll be back in maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. We'll keep you guessing on that one because we just really don't know ourselves at this stage when we're going to be back with, we're supposed to have an episode out sooner than this, so we're a bit off schedule, but we'll figure that out and we'll be back in your lives pretty soon. And we'll be talking all things Cage Warriors Belfast, the ins and outs of that card, and lots of other Irish MMA news along the way. Once again, thank you to Andy and Caoilte for joining me today. And we will catch you the next time. Take care, everybody. Thanks for listening. Like, subscribe, rate, tell a friend about the podcast. Goodbye.